Hello and good evening to you all. So I just walked in the door from the gym. So please excuse me while I get comfortable in my sweaty, smelly gym clothes. And it doesn't matter because no one's here to smell me. I had this idea on the way home because I am full of energy. And I thought, what better topic to go over than something that has to do with the rapture of the church? Now, I'm sure that there are many, if not all of you, that are familiar with the concept that a lot of people try to tie the rapture of the church to the seventh trumpet judgment from the book of Revelation. And for those of us who ascribe to or believe in a pre-trib rapture, we know that's not the case. And hopefully you guys know or can find the videos on my channel here which at length go through why that is not the case. For the most part, though, I have not really spoken about why the rapture of the church, the trump of God from 1 Corinthians 15, 50 through 52, and 1 Thessalonians 4, 13 through 18, is not tied to the seventh trumpet. For the most part, I've kind of bypassed that conversation altogether and really just talked about the scriptures that support or that discuss this idea of the rapture of the church, this catching away, this resurrection of those who have previously fallen asleep in Christ, along with the catching away of those who are alive at the time that Jesus comes back to fulfill this event. Go through the scriptures in the New Testament that talk about it, and then in Revelation, which talk about it also, so you can pinpoint it to a specific point in time in the book of Revelation, bypassing the need to really spend too much time talking about the post-trib view or the mid-trib view, which is tied to the seventh trumpet. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of a different tack in talking about this and talk about the seventh trumpet judgment. Now, I am in no way, shape, or form, say this right off the bat, suggesting that the rapture of the church could in any part be tied to the midpoint of the 70th week. I'm not talking about that at all. But what I want to do is kind of highlight maybe some of the issues that bring that to the fore and give people the opportunity to even discuss that or even potentially think that that could be the case. Now, going all the way back to the Old Testament in the book of Exodus, when we are first introduced to the trumpet that is synonymous with the voice of God, we see it in Exodus 19, when the people gather at the base of Mount Sinai to receive the law. Why I'm bringing this into the picture is because it is relevant to the book of Revelation and to the voices of the seven trumpets. There is a sound that is synonymous with the voice of God. We learn in the New Testament that Jesus also, his voice is also associated with this. Obviously, this is figuratively. But in the Old Testament, it wasn't figurative, it was literal. When we go to the book of Revelation, we will also see this literal representation, and it actually impacts a couple of different places. So let's start in Exodus 19. Before I jump all over the place, let's go back to the beginning of where we're introduced to the voice of trumpets. Exodus 19. We start in the beginning of the chapter. This is after the Israelites left Egypt and they came to Sinai, and the Lord was going to present the law to them. So he gave the command to Moses to gather the camp of Israel at the base of Sinai, and on the third day he would speak to them and deliver the law. So there are some requirements that the Lord lays out for Moses to deliver to the people. And we start in verse 16 of Exodus 19. It came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. So this is the first time that we are introduced to the voice of the trumpet. Now, clearly, when you read the previous part of that chapter, it tells that God is going to come meet with the people. So immediately, we identify this voice of the trumpet with God. So verse 17, and Moses brought forth the people of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the nether part of the mount. Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Moses spake, and God answered him by a voice. The Lord came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mount, and the Lord called Moses up to the top of the mount. Moses went up. We keep reading, and then in verse 20, God spake all these words, saying, and then he gave the 10 commandments. So, hi, Steve, welcome. Nice to have you here. And hello and welcome to everyone else who is here. So, continuing on, this is where we get the idea that the voice of the trumpet is synonymous with the voice of God. Now, there is a caveat to this, because the immediate assumption, and I know that I made this for a very long time, is that the voice of God in this context was the trumpet. Not so. What was this sound of the trumpet that represented God speaking to the people? I should have looked this up beforehand, because it actually is talked about in 3 different spots, in the book of Acts, in the book of Hebrews, and the book of Galatians. In Acts, I am familiar with specifically where it is, and it's in Acts 7:53. This is in the discourse that Stephen spoke right before he was stoned. And it basically gives a history of Israel to the religious leaders, and then announces Jesus is God, and then they killed him for saying that. So in Acts 7, verse 51, ye stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, ye do always resist the Holy Ghost, as your fathers did, so do ye. Which of the prophets have not your fathers persecuted, and they have slain them, which showed before of the coming of the just one, of whom ye have now been the betrayers and murderers, who have received the law by the disposition of angels and have not kept it. This is where we are first introduced to the idea that the voice of trumpets that spake the law in Exodus was not spoken directly by the voice of God. It was God speaking the law through the disposition of angels. The voice of the trumpet is associated to the voice of God. It is also associated to angels. The tonal quality of the voice of God, yes, is the trumpet. And when we go to Hebrews 1, we learn that Jesus was the incarnation of the trump of God, the literal voice of God on earth. In Revelation 1, what we hear the voice, as it were, of a trumpet talking with John. John turned around and he saw a vision of the glorified Christ. Jesus is the voice of God, the trump of God. Jesus' voice also is as of a trumpet. In Revelation 4:1, John heard the voice, as it were, of a trumpet talking with him, saying, come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. Who is giving the revelation to John to give to the 7 churches and to the world? Jesus himself. What are you told in Revelation 1? That the revelation of Jesus Christ is signified by the Lord's angel. The Lord's angel, the angel of the Lord, the Christophany, aka theophany in the Old Testament. Also, the appearance of Jesus before he was actually incarnated has the voice of a trumpet. The Lord's angel has the voice of a trumpet. The angels gave the disposition of the law on Sinai. God spoke through the voice of the trumpets. God spoke the law was given by the disposition of angels on Sinai. The voice of a trumpet waxing louder and louder so that the people in the camp trembled out of fear was God speaking through, who have received the law by the disposition of angels and have not kept it. The point I'm trying to make here is that the trump of God, the trumpet, the voice of a trumpet, is not only associated to the voice of God, who speaks through angels. It is also associated to the angel of the Lord, who is Jesus. In Revelation, this Old Testament reference is given for a reason. In Revelation 10, you see another mighty angel come down, clothed with a cloud, the pillar of cloud in the Old Testament, the angel of the Lord that led Israel in the wilderness, a pillar of fire by night and a pillar of cloud by day, the angel of the Lord. This is in Revelation 10, an Old Testament reference back to, a New Testament reference back to the Old Testament. I saw another mighty angel clothed with a cloud. This is the angel of the Lord, the same one that led Israel in the wilderness, with a rainbow upon his head. Who has the rainbow? Who is the mediator of the rainbow, which signifies the new covenant? You're first introduced to that in Revelation 4. Insight like unto an emerald, because the new covenant is mediated by the high priest from the tribe of Judah. So the clothed with a cloud is a reference to the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament, the pillar of cloud that went before and behind the camp of Israel. The rainbow upon his head, a reference to the new covenant. He had a little book opened in his hand, Revelation 5. We're introduced to the fact that the only one who's worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof and to read the writing within and on the backside is the Lord himself, is Jesus Christ himself, the Lamb, the only one worthy. He cried with a loud voice as when a lion roareth. Obviously, that's Jesus, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Again, in Revelation 1 and in Revelation 4, he also speaks with the voice of a trumpet. Let me see if I can go to Galatians real quick. Find it in Galatians. Talking about receiving the law. I think Acts 7:53 discusses it as much as I really need to find a verse. In Galatians, because I always like to have more than one verse, sister verses, so that I'm not like, she's taking that out of context. No, really, I'm not. Galatians 3:19, talking about the new covenant, which does not, or the old covenant, which did not disannul the Abrahamic covenant promises. The promises given by faith, the law is not of faith, etc. Contrasting old and new covenants. But in Galatians 3:19, wherefore then serveth the law? It was added because of the transgressions till the seed should come to whom the promise was made. Talking about the spiritual seed, which is through Christ, not the natural seed, which is talking about the two different parts of the Abrahamic covenant. But the law it's talking about, and it was ordained by angels in the hand of the mediator. The mediator being God. So talking about the law spoken by God, given through the disposition of angels. So the voices as of trumpets speaking the law to the people were actually those of angels, giving the disposition of the law. This plays heavily into the book of Revelation because, again, there are some people who confuse the rapture of the church, the last trump, with the seventh trumpet judgment. It's not, and it shouldn't be, but how can that be the case? I think maybe something that perhaps might get overlooked is that the seven trumpets that are given to the angels are not literal trumpets. How do we know this? In Revelation 8, after the seventh seal is opened, in verse 2, and I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. Now, why does it say that? In John 5:22, Jesus says that all judgment is committed to him by the Father, that the Father judges no one, that all judgment has been committed to the Son. The language that tells us that to them were given seven trumpets essentially means that they must be given the command to sound these trumpets. They don't do it on their own. They don't do it free from the command to do it. They are given the command to do it at the behest of the one to whom all judgment has been committed. So this is telling you that the Lamb is the one who opened the seven seals, every single one of them. The giving of these seven trumpets to the seven angels is the command to sound them. They don't do it apart from this command because, again, all judgment has been committed unto the Son. The Son is not actually sounding the trumpets, but he is giving the authority to these angels to do so. The Son is not actually pouring out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth, but he's giving the vials to the seven angels to do at his command. They do not do this apart from his command. So that is why that verse is there, to tell you that they are given this authority to do this, not on their own. They are given this authority by the one to whom the authority to judge has been committed by the Father, which is the Son. But they are not given seven literal trumpets, like we would think like an instrument to sound. How do we know this? When we go to Revelation, the end of that chapter, it makes this very, very clear that these trumpets are voices. Revelation 8:13. And I beheld and heard an angel fly through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by the reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound. So we go to Revelation 8:2, and we see that they are these seven angels. And again, it says, and I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. They are given the voices of trumpets specific to these judgments to speak the judgments. We learn this in the last verse of the chapter, that these trumpets that are being sounded are the voices of these angels to whom were given the seven trumpets. Again, the trumpet is the voice that is given to the sounding of angels. This goes all the way back to the book of Exodus. The law was spoken by God, given through the disposition of angels. We learn this in the book of Galatians, and we learn this in the book of Acts. And I know that it's in the book of Hebrews somewhere, but I don't have it in front of me to look up, and I don't really want to take the time to do that. When we go to the book of Revelation, it makes it significantly more clear that, especially in Revelation 8, that the voice of angels is the trumpet. That the trumpet judgments are associated to the commands given by the voices of angels. But we are specifically shown that they are given that authority because, again, all judgment has been committed to the Son. So you need to see these angels who have the voice of the trumpet being given that authority because there is only one to whom judgment has been committed. So they must be given the authority to use their voices in the capacity of judgment. And that is what you see in Revelation 8:2, is them being given that authority. But it is not an actual trumpet instrument. It is their voice that gives the command to to each of these judgments. Revelation 8:6. So let's read this. Revelation 8:2. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God. To them were given 7 trumpets. Okay? So they're given authority to use their voices in the capacity of judgment. Revelation 8:6. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Prepared themselves to sound. Didn't prepare their instruments to sound. Prepared themselves to sound, because it is their own voice which has the authority to sound these individual 7 judgments. And this is further solidified. So the first angel sounded. Yeah, he spoke his own voice that was given the command to do so by the authority placed upon him to sound this trumpet, to speak. The second angel sounded. The third angel sounded. The fourth angel sounded. What are they sounding? Their voices. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by the reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. The sound of the trumpet is the speaking of angelic voices. It is specifically for this reason that 1 Thessalonians 4 in Paul's language identifies the voice of the archangel and with the trump of God. Jesus is not an angel. He is the ruler over all of the angels. But we go back to Revelation 1, and in 2 different places, we have Jesus identified as an angel. But he's not just an ordinary angel. He is the angel of the Lord. Again, the Old Testament reference is the theophany or the Christophany, the angel of the Lord, the pre-incarnate Christ, the appearance of the pre-incarnate Christ. He's not just an angel. He's the angel of the Lord, the same one that Jacob wrestled with. Again, the pillar of cloud, the angel of the Lord that went before and behind Israel, leading the camp. Sorry, my cat. The pillar of fire by night, and the pillar of cloud by day. And again, this is in Revelation 10, this reference to another mighty angel come down, clothed with a pillar of cloud. This is identifying Jesus, the angel of the Lord. Why is this important? Because in 2 places in Revelation, you are also told that his voice is the voice of a trumpet. In Revelation 1:1, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. But then you read the rest of Revelation 1, and it's not an angel signifying the revelation of Jesus Christ to John. It's Jesus Christ giving the revelation of Jesus Christ to John. How do we know this? Verse 10, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day and heard a voice behind me, a great voice as of a trumpet. Yep, sent and signified by the Lord's angel. Heard a voice behind him as of a trumpet. Does he turn around and see an angel? He turns around and sees the glorified Christ, who is, in the Old Testament, the angel of the Lord, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, and what thou seest write in a book and send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, and unto Smyrna, and unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, the voice of the trumpet. And being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. being in the midst of the 7 golden candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man. Yeah. The glorified Christ in the New Testament, the angel of the Lord, the Christophany or the Theophany in the Old Testament. It is impossible to interpret the book of Revelation without understanding the Old Testament references. And in Revelation 10, I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, pillar of cloud, and a rainbow upon his head. Yep, rainbow, Old Testament, and Ezekiel 1 talks about the bow, the rainbow in the throne room. As a token of the new covenant, Revelation 4, and again, Ezekiel 1, last verse in the chapter. A rainbow was upon his head, his face as it were of the sun. Yup, in Revelation 1, his countenance shone as the sun, glorified Christ in its glory. His feet as pillars of fire. Yep, pillars of fire as if they burned in a furnace. Revelation 1, again, these are pictures of the glorified Christ, descriptions of the glorified Christ given in the first chapter of the book. In his hand, a little book opened. Yup, Revelation 5 tells us at that point it was still sealed, but at this point in Revelation, all of the seals have been opened, and you're on Trumpet Judgment 6 by now. So most of the writing within has been read. Writing with you have one trumpet. Well, Trumpet 6 has to be finished. Trumpet 7 has to be sounded, and then the vials, which is the writing on the backside, has to be read. But anyway, the only one worthy to open the book and to read the writing within and on the backside is the Lamb. So you know that that's who that is. That's Jesus. This mighty angel is Jesus. He set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the earth. That is a reference to Daniel 12. Prophesying about how much time there will be from the abomination of desolation to the end, which you're approaching the midpoint of the week, and Revelation 10 is actually talking about what's going to happen in conjunction with the sounding of the 7th trumpet, which is at the midpoint. So it goes back to Daniel 12, which prophesies how much time there will be from that point to the end, 7th trumpet to the end, which is a time times half a time, till all these things be accomplished, and he has to accomplish to scatter the power of the holy people. And he cried with a loud voice as when a lion roareth. The book of Joel tells us he will roar out of Zion, utter his voice from Jerusalem. That is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. When he had cried, 7 thunders utter their voices. 7 thunders is a reference to the 7 spirits of God before the throne. 7 thunders is a proper name. Thunders is a proper name. And when you go back to Revelation 4, there's lightnings and thunderings and voices coming from the throne. The 7 lamps of burning fire before the throne, the 7 thunders uttering their voices, that those are the 7 spirits of God. So anyway, hopefully you're understanding the point that I'm Dorothy, I see your questions and I'll get to them when I'm done with this. But hopefully you're understanding the point that the sounding of the trumpet is associated with the voice of angels. There is a vast difference between the voice, as it were, of a trumpet associated to Jesus, who is the actual angel of the Lord in the Old Testament, versus the angels which are given the voices of trumpets to sound these specific trumpet judgments, that authority delegated to them by the one to whom all judgment has been committed, which is Jesus specifically. Now, it's interesting because amidst the goings-on of the trumpet judgments, the first angel sounded, you have the 6th angel sounding to this point, and you have another mighty angel come down, differentiating this another mighty angel from any of the other 6 that have previously sounded, and also differentiating him from the 7th trumpet, which has yet to sound. Now, how do we know this? Because when you go through the sequence of Revelation 10, he's actually the other mighty angel. I'll just read this. Another mighty angel came down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, a rainbow upon his head, his voice as it his face were of the sun, his feet as pillars of fire. He had in his hand a little book open. He set his right foot upon the sea, his left foot upon the earth, and cried with a loud voice as when a lion roareth. When he had cried, seven thunders uttered their voices, and when the seven thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up those things which the seven thunders uttered and write them not. Here we go. The angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted his hand to heaven. This is really, really important in the scope of understanding how the voice of the archangel and with the trump of God cannot be the seventh angel associated to the seventh trumpet, the sounding of the seventh trumpet. The mighty angel that comes down, which is the angel of the Lord, which is Jesus Christ. All of these depictions show that from the Old Testament and from the New Testament, specifically Revelation 1. All of these identifiers point to this mighty angel in Revelation 10 being Jesus Christ himself. Okay? But it's depicting him as another mighty angel. He's telling you, in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, this mighty angel, which is Jesus, who is distinct and separate from the six angels which have previously sounded their voices, is also telling you that he's not the seventh angel in the days of the voice of the seventh angel when he shall begin to sound. The mystery of God shall be finished as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. This other mighty angel is telling you that when this other angel sounds his voice, these things are going to be accomplished. Revelation 10 is a pivotal chapter in understanding so much of the book of Revelation, specifically at the midpoint. But in understanding who this other mighty angel is, you come to the realization extraordinarily quickly that he is not and cannot be the voice of the seventh angel, which sounds the trumpet, which completes the trumpet judgments. One more point, and then I will be done with this conversation, I believe. First Thessalonians 4. This is specifically why Paul uses the language that he does. Because in Hebrews 1, the whole purpose of the chapter of Hebrews 1 is to differentiate Jesus from the angels and to tell us that he is infinitely greater than the angels. In 1 Thessalonians 4:16, we are told the Lord himself, Jesus Christ, shall descend from heaven with a shout. The shout is used to wake the dead. In the Gospels, when Jesus cried with a loud voice or shouted, the graves opened. We see this with Lazarus. Jesus cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And Lazarus came out of the grave still wearing his grave clothes. And when Jesus cried with a loud voice and yielded up the ghost, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from top to bottom. The rocks did rent and the graves were opened. And 3 days later, the bodies of them that slept came out of the graves. After he rose, they came out of the graves. So the shout is used to wake the dead. With the voice of the archangel and with the trump of God. The trump of God is used to call to assembly. So that is what Jesus is going to speak and assemble those he just shouted and woke up with those who are alive and remain and assemble them together in the clouds to meet him face to face. But the second thing that is mentioned is the voice of the archangel. So many people say that this is Michael, the archangel, that he's going to be with Jesus and he's going to be shouting, giving the command to assemble. No. This differentiates the fact that it will not be just any angel, or it will not even be specifically the archangel Michael. The prefix arch has two different meanings. It can either mean the chief angel or the ruler angel, which is what Michael is. He's the ruler angel, the archangel, the chief angel. But it also means ruler of the angels. And that is what Hebrews 1 tells us Jesus is. He is the ruler of the angels. He is not an angel. He is infinitely above all of the angels. In the Old Testament, angel of the Lord, the Christophany, the theophany, the pillar of cloud, call it what you will. He's now the glorified Christ. He is not an angel. He is not an archangel. He is the ruler or chief of the angels. And this is the vastly differentiating feature that many people who try to tie this to the seventh trumpet judgment miss. It's not the voice of an angel. It's the voice of the ruler of the angels, the Lord himself, Jesus Christ himself, the ruler of the angels, calling to assembly those who have died in him, fallen asleep in him, and those who are alive and remain at his coming, to assemble together, to change, to take to the Father's house in a glorified state. But the really fundamental understanding of why this cannot be the case, that the rapture cannot be tied to the seventh trumpet, why this voice of the archangel, the last trump, First Corinthians 15:50, behold, I show you a mystery, we shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. People say the last trump. Last just means eschate. It's where we get the word eschatology, or our study of the last things. That is the last thing that will happen in the dispensation of the grace of God, to go into the 70th week, the change of the dispensations, the study of the last things. It is literally the last event which will end this dispensation of the grace of God, is the rapture of the church. This shout to wake the dead, the calling to assembly by the ruler of the angels, differentiating him from the angels themselves, and not in differentiating him from even Michael, the archangel. Again, arch can mean chief angel or chief of the angels. Michael is an angel, so him being the archangel means that he's the chief angel. Jesus is not an angel, which means that he's the chief of the angels. This is the difference. Big difference. However, in the book of Revelation, Revelation 10 is the chapter that tells you, when you're talking about the angel of the Lord, the Old Testament reference here, again, you have to understand the Old Testament references to understand the book of Revelation. Otherwise, you're probably going to spend a lot of time wondering what it is talking about. But when you are talking about the Old Testament angel of the Lord, all of these Old Testament prophecies depicting Jesus this way, Lion of the tribe of Judah, the one who's worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof, the mediator of the new covenant, rainbow on his head, the pillar of cloud, this mighty angel, angel of the Lord, Old Testament, led Israel out of the wilderness. Again, pillar of cloud by night, pillar of fire by night, pillar of cloud by day, before and behind Israel. Basically protected them. This is a reference to. This is pointing you to Jesus. Countenance shone like the sun. Glorified Christ. Pillars of feet. Revelation 1, as if they burned in a furnace. What is he telling you? What is this mighty angel, who is Jesus, telling you? That when this other angel sounds, in the days of the voice of the seven angels, when he shall begin to sound, not when I shall begin to sound, when he, the seventh angel, shall begin to sound. This mighty angel is not the angel that sounds the first trumpet, or the second, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, or the sixth, or the seventh. Got nothing to do with any of them, other than delegating the authority to do so, because it was to him that all judgment was committed. So hopefully you understand now why Paul in 1 Thessalonians 4:16 introduces the voice of the archangel. Not only is he telling you that Jesus is not an angel, he's telling you that it is the ruler of the angels himself that is giving the command to shout, wake the dead, and to call to assembly all those who have fallen asleep and or are alive in Christ. Calling them to assembly. Why is that important? Because his voice is as of a trumpet. What other voices are as of trumpets? Angels. So he is giving you the difference, the differentiation that you need to understand that this voice is not any angel, not even an extraordinary angel. It is not an angel at all. It is the voice of God himself, the voice of Jesus himself associated with the trumpet. It is the voice of the chief or ruler over the angels and not an angel himself. Because yes, the book of Revelation tells you that the angels have the voices of trumpets also. And the book of Acts and the book of Galatians tell you that too. And all the way back in Exodus, you see evidence of that. But it is not them, not any single one of them that is calling to assembly. And it is not any single one of them to whom the rapture of the church is sounding of the trumpet that the rapture church is tied to. None of them. This is a very separate event, and it is Jesus himself that is giving the command, the shout, and the voice of God to call to assembly, which, yes, is associated with the trump of God, and has got not anything to do with the trumpet judgments of the book of Revelation. Steve, does the seventh trumpet start the tribulations? No. Seal 1 is the start of the 70th week. Dorothy. No, you wouldn't be listening for an instrument, a voice, yes, to call to assembly. What about the bow? The bow in Revelation 6:2, that is the synonymous with the covenant, goes back to Genesis 9. God put his bow in the sky as a token of a covenant. Revelation 6:2, the bow is a token of a covenant. It is symbolic to tell you that a covenant is in place. It's the Daniel 9:27 covenant. Rainbow is a symbol of the new covenant. The bow in Revelation 6:2 is a symbol of the Daniel 9:27 covenant. But no, the rainbow you're introduced to in Revelation 10, but also in Revelation 4. That is different. Rainbow represents new covenant. Bow represents the Daniel 9:27 covenant in Revelation. So hopefully that made sense. Questions, comments, feedback, let me know. But this is something that I wanted to introduce you guys to if you were not familiar. Hopefully you were, but if you were not, it's an interesting concept.